At my sister's wedding she took the mic and made a cruel joke. My sister's a single mom, nobody wants her. The room burst into laughter. My mom, not missing a beat, added, "She's just a discarded item." The laughter quickly died down when the groom stood up, seized the mic, and the entire room fell into stunned silence. The valet took my car keys with barely concealed judgment. My 15-year-old Honda looked completely out of place among the line of luxury vehicles waiting outside the country club. I adjusted Jack's tie one more time, smoothing down his dark hair that insisted on sticking up despite the gel I'd borrowed from my neighbor. "Mom, you're making it worse," Jack whispered, but his smile told me he didn't mind. At 8 years old he was more excited about wearing his first real suit than worried about fitting in. I wished I had his confidence. The massive oak doors opened to reveal a wedding that probably cost more than I made in 2 years. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across marble floors, and white roses climbed every available surface. Guests mingled in designer gowns and tailored suits, their laughter mixing with the string quartet's gentle melodies. I felt underdressed despite spending 3 hours getting ready and maxing out my credit card for this navy dress. "Wow, Mom, it's like a castle," Jack breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. A knot formed in my stomach as familiar faces turned our way. Aunt Margaret's eyes swept over my dress, the same one I'd worn to Jack's school graduation last month. Cousin Sarah's perfectly manicured fingers tapped against her champagne flute as she whispered something to her husband. Their expressions said everything I already knew. I didn't belong here. "Emma, darling." My mother's voice cut through the crowd like a blade wrapped in silk. She approached us with arms outstretched, her emerald gown flowing behind her. "You made it. And look at Jack, such a handsome young man." She hugged me briefly, her perfume overwhelming. Over her shoulder, I caught her glancing at my shoes, the same black pumps I'd worn to every important event for the past 3 years. The heel on the left one wobbled slightly, but Jack didn't notice. He was too busy staring at the ice sculpture of 2 swans that dominated the entrance hall. "The bride's room is just through there if you want to see Bella before the ceremony," Mom said, her tone suggesting I should want to do exactly that. I nodded, taking Jack's hand. We navigated through clusters of guests who parted just enough to let us pass. I caught fragments of conversations. Exotic honeymoon destinations, stock portfolios, country club memberships. None of it felt real to me. These people lived in a world where money wasn't counted twice before spending, where car payments weren't a monthly source of anxiety. "Grandma seems happy," Jack observed, swinging our joined hands. "She loves weddings," I replied, though what she really loved was the spectacle, the chance to show off the family's success. Bella's success, specifically. The bride's preparation room buzzed with activity. Bella sat in the center like a queen holding court, her wedding dress spread around her in perfect ivory waves. 3 bridesmaids fussed over her hair while a professional photographer captured every moment. She looked radiant, flawless, everything I'd never been. "Emma." Bella's face lit up when she saw us. "You look lovely." The compliment felt hollow, delivered with the same tone she'd used to praise my participation ribbons when we were kids. She'd always been the winner, the achiever, the daughter who made our parents proud. I'd learned to accept second place so long ago that I barely remembered wanting first. "You look absolutely stunning," I said, meaning it. Bella had always been beautiful, but today she glowed with the confidence of someone whose life was unfolding exactly as planned. Jack pressed closer to my side as the photographer's flash went off repeatedly. He wasn't used to this level of attention, this orchestrated perfection. Neither was I. "We should find our seats," I murmured after a few minutes of awkward small talk. The ceremony space took my breath away. White chairs arranged in perfect rows faced an altar draped in more flowers than I'd seen in one place. We were seated in the 3rd row, close enough to show we were family, far enough back to acknowledge our status within it. "Is that the groom?" Jack whispered, pointing to a tall man in a charcoal gray tuxedo adjusting his cufflinks near the altar. "That's Aiden," I confirmed. I'd met him only twice before. Once at the engagement party I'd barely afforded to attend, and once at a family dinner where I'd spent most of the evening helping Mom in the kitchen while everyone else socialized. He seemed decent enough, though I wondered what he saw in Bella beyond her obvious beauty. Maybe that was enough. Maybe some people were lucky enough to have beauty, money, and love all wrapped up in one perfect package. The ceremony began with all the expected elegance. Bella walked down the aisle like she was floating, Dad's arm steady beneath her hand. She'd always been graceful, in ballet class, at school presentations, even in casual conversation. I'd been the clumsy one, the awkward one, the one who tried too hard and still fell short. Jack sat quietly beside me, occasionally leaning over to ask whispered questions about the proceedings. His genuine curiosity reminded me why I was here. Not for my family's approval, but to show him what family looked like even when it was complicated. During the vows, I found myself studying the guests around us. These were Bella's people now, Aiden's family, their college friends, professional colleagues. They represented the life she'd built, the success she'd earned. I felt proud of her and envious at the same time, a familiar combination that had defined our relationship since childhood. The photographer moved through the crowd like a ghost, capturing moments of joy and celebration. I instinctively turned away when his lens pointed in our direction. I didn't want to be the awkward relative in the corner of someone else's perfect memories. After the ceremony, during cocktail hour, the comparisons became unavoidable. Relatives asked about my job with polite interest that faded quickly when I mentioned managing a small medical office. They asked about Jack's father with carefully neutral expressions, then changed the subject when I gave my standard response about it being complicated. Jack found wonder in everything. The elaborate appetizers he'd never tasted, the live jazz trio, the way sunlight streamed through stained glass windows. His excitement was pure and uncomplicated, a reminder that not everything had to be measured against others' expectations. I watched Bella work the room with practiced ease, accepting congratulations and admiration like they were her natural due. She'd always known how to be the center of attention, how to make people feel charmed by her presence. I'd never learned that skill, never figured out how to be anything other than myself, which apparently wasn't quite enough for this family. The weight of their expectations pressed down on me like a heavy coat I couldn't remove. Every smile felt forced, every conversation felt like a test I was failing. But Jack's hand in mine kept me grounded, reminded me that I had something valuable even if it wasn't what this family valued. The clinking of silverware against crystal glasses cut through the dinner conversation like a dinner bell. I straightened in my chair, grateful for the distraction from Aunt Margaret's pointed questions about my plans for the future. Jack had just finished his second helping of wedding cake. Apparently the dessert course came before speeches at fancy receptions. Ladies and gentlemen, the wedding coordinator's voice boomed through the sound system, we'll now begin our evening toasts. I relaxed slightly. Speeches meant the formal part would soon be over. Maybe Jack and I could slip out during the dancing before anyone noticed we were gone. My feet already ached in these borrowed heels, and I'd caught enough sideways glances to last a lifetime. Marcus, the best man, stood first. He was Aiden's college roommate, tall, confident, the kind of man who commanded attention without trying. His speech was perfectly crafted, full of amusing anecdotes about Aiden's questionable fashion choices in college and his terrible cooking skills. The crowd laughed at all the right moments. Even Jack giggled when Marcus described Aiden burning water while attempting pasta. And then there was the time Aiden tried to impress a date by making reservations at 5 different restaurants, Marcus continued, just in case one fell through. Turns out he forgot to cancel 4 of them. More laughter rippled through the reception hall. I found myself smiling despite everything. These were the kinds of stories that made people real human. For a moment I could picture Aiden as more than just Bella's perfect husband, as someone who made mistakes, who tried too hard sometimes. The maid of honor followed with a tearful tribute to Bella's loyalty and beauty. She'd known Bella since high school, back when I was already working part-time jobs to help pay for Bella's dance classes. Those details didn't make it into the speech, of course. Instead, we heard about shopping trips to Paris and sorority adventures I'd never been part of. Jack started fidgeting with his napkin, folding it into increasingly complex shapes. The speeches were running long and his 8-year-old attention span was reaching its limit. I placed my hand over his, trying to keep him still without drawing attention. And now, Marcus announced, the bride would like to say a few words. My chest tightened with unexpected hope. Maybe Bella would mention our childhood, those quiet moments when we'd shared secrets and dreams. Maybe she'd acknowledge that despite everything we were still sisters. Maybe this was her chance to bridge the gap that had grown between us over the years. Bella rose gracefully, her dress catching the light from the chandeliers. She moved to the microphone with the confidence of someone accustomed to being the center of attention. The room fell silent, everyone eager to hear what the beautiful bride had to say. "Thank you all so much for being here tonight," she began, her voice warm and melodic. "This day wouldn't have been possible without the love and support of our families and friends." She paused, scanning the room with that practiced smile I'd seen 1,000 times. Her eyes found mine for just a moment, and I felt that familiar flutter of sisterly affection. Maybe she would surprise me. "I want to especially thank my big sister Emma for making the trip," Bella continued, her tone shifting to something that made my skin crawl. "She's such an inspiration to all of us single ladies, proving that you can still have a great time even when nobody wants to take you home." The words hit me before I could process them. A few guests chuckled nervously. Bella wasn't done. "Emma's taught us all so much about independence. She's a single mom, strong, resilient, and clearly so intimidating that no man dares to approach her." Her voice dripped with mock sweetness. Or maybe they just know better than to take on someone else's leftovers. The nervous chuckles erupted into full laughter. I felt my face burn as heads turned toward me. Some guests looked uncomfortable, but others seemed to find Bella's roast hilarious. My hands trembled in my lap. "Mom, what's she talking about?" Jack whispered, confusion clear in his voice. Before I could respond, my mother's voice rang out from the head table. "Oh, Bella, you're terrible," she called out, but she was laughing. "Emma's just a discarded item at this point. But she still cleans up nice, doesn't she?" The laughter grew louder. Someone at the back actually applauded. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of faces, all looking at me with pity, amusement, or outright mockery. The elegant reception hall suddenly felt like a coliseum, and I was the entertainment. Jack tugged at my sleeve, his small face scrunched with worry. "Mama, why are they laughing at you? What did Aunt Bella mean about leftovers?" My throat closed up completely. I couldn't speak, couldn't move, couldn't think. The sound of laughter seemed to echo off the marble floors and crystal fixtures, bouncing around the room until it was all I could hear. How could they do this to me? How could my own family turn my struggles into entertainment? Bella continued speaking, but her words became white noise. My vision blurred at the edges. I gripped Jack's hand tighter than I should have, using him as an anchor to keep from floating away completely. "I don't understand," Jack said louder now, his voice cutting through my paralysis. "Why did she say you were scary? You're not scary, Mama. You're the nicest person I know." His innocent defense of me was the final straw. Tears I'd been holding back all evening threatened to spill over. I blinked rapidly, refusing to give these people the satisfaction of seeing me break down completely. The applause that followed Bella's speech felt like thunder in my ears. She returned to her seat with a satisfied smile, accepting congratulations from nearby guests who told her how witty and charming she was. She turned my pain into her moment of triumph. "Mama," Jack whispered urgently, "can we go home now? I don't like it here anymore." Neither did I. Neither did I. I was halfway out of my chair, my purse clutched against my chest like armor, when the scraping of another chair stopped me cold. The sound cut through the lingering laughter and scattered applause. I turned, expecting to see another guest preparing to leave or perhaps someone heading to the bar. Instead, Aiden stood at the head table, his tall frame rigid with an emotion I couldn't immediately identify. His jaw was set in a way that made the muscles in his neck visible, and his hands, those same hands that had just slipped a wedding ring onto my sister's finger, were clenched at his sides. The laughter died abruptly. Conversations halted mid-sentence. Even the catering staff, who had been quietly clearing dessert plates, froze in place. The entire reception hall fell into the kind of silence that makes your ears ring. "Aiden." Bella's voice was small, uncertain. She was still holding the microphone, but her grip had loosened. For the first time all evening she looked less than perfectly composed. He didn't answer her. His eyes were locked on mine from across the room, and in them I saw something I hadn't expected: genuine anger. Not the polite irritation of someone embarrassed by a social misstep, but deep, righteous fury that made my breath catch. Without breaking eye contact, he walked toward Bella with measured steps. Each footfall echoed in the crystalline silence. Guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, wine glasses frozen halfway to lips, forks abandoned over half-eaten cake. "Hey, I." His voice was calm, controlled, but there was steel underneath. Bella blinked up at him, confusion flickering across her features. What? Instead of waiting for permission, Aiden gently but firmly took the microphone from her hands. She released it without protest, perhaps too stunned to resist. He adjusted the height with deliberate precision, testing the sound with a soft tap that amplified through the speakers. "I need to say something," he began, his voice carrying clearly to every corner of the room. "I can't," he paused, seeming to gather himself. "I won't pretend that what just happened was acceptable." A collective intake of breath swept through the guests. Uncle Robert shifted forward in his chair. Aunt Margaret's champagne flute clinked against her bracelet as her hand trembled slightly. At the head table, my mother's smile had completely disappeared. "What you all just witnessed wasn't humor," Aiden continued, his gaze moving across the faces in the crowd before returning to me. "It was cruelty. Pure and simple." Jack's small hand found mine, his fingers intertwining with incredible trust. He didn't fully understand what was happening, but he sensed its importance. I squeezed back, drawing strength from his presence. Bella stood slowly, her wedding dress rustling like autumn leaves. "Aiden, it was just what?" He turned to face her fully for the first time since taking the microphone. "Just a joke? Just harmless family teasing." His voice didn't rise, but somehow it became more powerful. "You mocked your sister for being a single mother. You turned her struggles into entertainment. You made a room full of people laugh at her pain." The color drained from Bella's face. She opened her mouth to respond, but nothing came out. Around the room, guests who had been chuckling moments before now studied their hands, their plates, anything but the unfolding drama. "She came here today." Aiden's voice grew stronger, more passionate. "She dressed up, she brought her son, she sat politely through dinner and speeches. She didn't ask for attention or sympathy or special treatment. She just wanted to be here for your wedding." I felt tears threatening again, but they were different now. Not tears of humiliation, but something deeper, more complicated. "And you?" He gestured toward the head table where my mother still sat, her emerald dress suddenly seeming garish under the chandelier light. "You joined in. You called your own daughter a discarded item, and laughed about it." My mother's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. For once in her life, she seemed at a complete loss for words. "I've spent the past year listening to speeches about family values," Aiden continued, addressing the entire room now. "About tradition, about loyalty, about the importance of blood ties. But if this is what your family values look like, if this is how you treat each other, then I want no part of it." The silence was so complete I could hear my own heartbeat. Even the kitchen staff had stopped their work. Through the tall windows, I could see the sun setting over the golf course, painting everything in shades of gold and orange that seemed almost violent against the stark white of the reception hall. "Emma," Aiden's voice softened as he looked directly at me again. "You deserve better than this. Your son deserves better than this. And I'm sorry, truly sorry, that it took me this long to say it." He set the microphone down on the nearest table with a gentle click that somehow sounded final. The gesture was small, but it felt monumental. Bella reached for his arm. "Aiden, please, let's just..." He stepped away from her touch, not roughly but definitively. "I need some air." And then he walked out. Not the dramatic storm-off I might have expected, but a calm, purposeful exit that somehow carried more weight than any tantrum could have. The double doors closed behind him with a soft whisper, leaving the rest of us in deafening silence. For the first time in hours, maybe years, I felt something other than shame. It was small at first, just a tiny spark in my chest, but it was growing. Someone had stood up for me. Someone had seen the cruelty for what it was and refused to let it pass. I looked down at Jack, whose wide eyes were fixed on the doors where Aiden had disappeared. "Is he in trouble, Mama?" Jack whispered. I squeezed his hand tighter and stood up, my borrowed heels clicking against the marble floor as I found my footing. "No, sweetheart," I said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "He's not in trouble at all." Walking toward the exit with Jack's hand in mine, I could hear whispered conversations erupting behind us like wildfire. Phones were being pulled from purses and jacket pockets. The soft glow of screens illuminated faces that had moments before been frozen in shock. "Did someone record that?" I heard Cousin Sarah ask her husband in an urgent whisper. "Posted it already," he replied, his thumb scrolling rapidly across his phone. "This is going everywhere." Jack looked up at me with concern as we pushed through the heavy oak doors into the cool evening air. Are we leaving, Mama? Yes, sweetheart. We're going home. The valet seemed surprised to see us so early, but he jogged toward the parking area without comment. While we waited, my own phone buzzed insistently in my clutch. Text messages from numbers I didn't recognize, notifications from social media platforms I barely used. The digital noise was overwhelming. The first message that caught my attention was from my old college roommate. Emma, is this you? Someone just sent me the most incredible video. My stomach dropped. Within 30 minutes of Aiden's speech, someone had uploaded it to every platform imaginable. The video was shaky, clearly shot on a phone by a guest trying to be discreet, but the audio was crystal clear. By the time Jack and I reached home, the video had been shared 3,000 times. By morning it was approaching 50,000. The comments were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. This man is a hero, wrote someone from Australia. Standing up for family when her own family wouldn't. The way he defended her without making it about himself, that's real character, posted a woman from Texas. As a single mom myself, this made me cry. We need more people like him in the world. Each notification felt like a small validation I'd never known I needed. Strangers were seeing what my own family had failed to recognize, that I was worthy of respect, worthy of defense. But the attention came with complications. Reporters started calling. A local news station wanted to interview me. Someone had identified Bella from her wedding photos and was asking pointed questions about the family dynamics on her social media pages. Bella's response was swift but clumsy. She posted a video the next morning, her hair perfectly styled despite the early hour, her makeup flawless as always. She sat in what I recognized as her apartment's living room, the one she'd decorated with expensive furniture from magazines. I want to address what happened at my wedding yesterday, she began, her voice carrying that same practiced sweetness from her speech. What some people are calling cruel was actually just sibling humor. Emma and I have always teased each other. It's just how our family shows love. The comments on her video were brutal. Your humor humiliated your sister in front of her child. Watch the original video again. That wasn't love. That was meanness. The way your own mother joined in was disgusting. Bella disabled comments within hours, but screenshots had already circulated. Her carefully curated social media presence, built over years of perfect photos and inspirational quotes, was crumbling under scrutiny. 2 weeks after the wedding, Aiden called me directly. I stared at his name on my phone screen for 3 rings before answering. Emma, I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from the wedding planner's contact list. I don't mind, I said, though my heart was racing. How are you? I should be asking you that. I've seen some of the media attention. Are you okay? We talked for over an hour. Not about Bella, not about the wedding, but about real things. Jack's upcoming baseball season. Aiden's work as a civil engineer. The book club I'd recently joined. Normal conversations that felt extraordinary because someone was actually listening. These calls became regular. Every few days Aiden would check in. Sometimes Jack would grab the phone and tell Aiden about school or ask engineering questions that made me smile. Aiden always took his questions seriously, explaining concepts with patience I'd rarely seen from adults in Jack's life. He's really smart, Aiden told me after one of Jack's impromptu interrogations about bridge construction. You're raising an incredible kid. The compliment settled in my chest like warm honey. When was the last time someone had praised my parenting without adding a qualifier? Meanwhile, Bella's world was shifting in ways I witnessed through mutual family friends. Her engagement photos had been removed from her social media. She'd stopped posting altogether, actually. Aunt Margaret mentioned during an awkward phone call that Bella and Aiden were working through some issues. 3 months after the wedding, I ran into Bella at the grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, her usually perfect appearance slightly disheveled. Dark circles under her eyes suggested she wasn't sleeping well. Emma, she said, her voice uncertain. How are you? I'm good, Bella. Really good. And I meant it. The constant knot of anxiety I'd carried for years had loosened. I was sleeping better, laughing more, finding joy in small moments that had previously been overshadowed by family expectations. I wanted to apologize, she said quietly, glancing around as if worried someone might overhear. About the wedding. I didn't think. You didn't think about how it would affect Jack, I finished for her. Or me. I know. She fidgeted with her car keys. People have been saying such horrible things about me online. About our family. Maybe they're not horrible, I said gently. Maybe they're just true. 6 months after the wedding, Aiden's name appeared on my phone again. This time his voice sounded different, lighter somehow but also tired. I wanted you to hear this from me, he said. Belle and I broke up. Officially ended the engagement yesterday. I sat down heavily on my couch processing the news. I'm sorry, I said automatically, though I wasn't sure I meant it. I'm not, he replied honestly. We've been over for months, really. Since the wedding. I kept trying to understand how someone could treat their family that way, could find cruelty funny. I realized I was trying to love someone who didn't exist. Or at least someone who wasn't real. The conversation that followed was longer, deeper. We talked about values, about the kind of people we wanted to be. About what we'd learned from the whole experience. Thank you, I said finally. For standing up for me. For seeing me. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like, he replied. Watching you handle everything with such grace. It changed something in me. As I hung up the phone that night, I realized something had fundamentally shifted. I no longer felt like I was waiting for permission to exist, for approval to take up space in the world. Aiden's intervention had given me something I'd never had before. Proof that I was worth defending. For the first time in my adult life, I felt genuinely free. The freedom didn't come all at once. It arrived in small waves, each one washing away another layer of the person I thought I had to be. 3 months after Aiden's call about the breakup, I found myself standing in the doorway of a 2-bedroom apartment across town, holding Jack's hand as the realtor handed me the keys. It's perfect, Mama, Jack said, racing through the empty rooms, his footsteps echoing off hardwood floors that had never heard my family's criticisms. Can I pick which room is mine? Absolutely, I laughed, watching him sprint toward the bedroom with the big window that faced the park. This place was ours. No inherited furniture loaded with memories, no family photos judging us from every wall. Just space to breathe and grow. The apartment wasn't fancy, but it was clean and bright, with a kitchen where Jack could do homework at the counter while I cooked dinner. The living room had built-in bookshelves that I planned to fill with stories we actually wanted to read. Most importantly, it felt like a place where laughter was welcome. Moving day arrived with unexpected help. My neighbor from the old apartment, Mrs. Chin, insisted on packing our kitchen while her teenage son helped load boxes. Even my supervisor from work showed up with her husband and a pickup truck, claiming she needed the exercise anyway. You know, she said while wrapping my coffee mugs in newspaper, I've watched you handle difficult patients and crazy insurance companies for 3 years. You've got more backbone than you realize. That comment stuck with me as we settled into our new routine. Jack thrived in his new school, making friends with the kind of ease I envied. I started taking evening walks around the neighborhood after he went to bed, something I'd never done before. The simple act of moving through the world alone without apology or explanation felt revolutionary. 6 months into our new life, my phone rang during one of these walks. My mother's name appeared on the screen, the first time she'd called since the wedding fallout. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. Emma. Her voice sounded smaller than I remembered. I've been thinking about what happened. About what I said. I stopped walking, settling onto a bench under a street lamp. Okay. I was wrong, she continued, the words coming out rushed as if she was afraid she'd lose courage. I was so caught up in the moment, in the laughter, that I forgot you were my daughter. I forgot you have feelings. The apology wasn't perfect. It came months too late and still felt somewhat self-serving, but it was something. More importantly, I realized I didn't need it to feel whole anymore. I appreciate you calling, Mom, I said honestly. But I need you to understand that things can't go back to how they were. I won't accept being treated as less than anymore. I know, she whispered. I know that now. The conversation was brief, awkward in places, but it ended without anger. When I hung up, I didn't feel the familiar knot of anxiety in my stomach. Instead, I felt something like peace. Work became a different experience entirely. The confidence I'd found at home started seeping into my professional life. When Dr. Martinez asked who wanted to take on training the new medical assistants, my hand shot up before I could second-guess myself. Emma, that's a significant responsibility, he said, looking surprised. I can handle it, I replied, meeting his gaze directly. I'm good with people and I know this office inside and out. He smiled, the kind of smile that suggested he was seeing me clearly for the first time. You're absolutely right. The position is yours. Training new staff taught me things about myself I'd never recognized. I was patient but firm, encouraging but realistic. The young woman I mentored, Sarah, reminded me of myself years ago. Eager to please, quick to apologize for taking up space. You don't need to say sorry for asking questions, I told her one afternoon when she apologized for the third time in an hour. Your curiosity makes you better at this job. She looked at me with surprise, as if no one had ever given her permission to be curious before. In that moment, I understood how powerful it could be to see someone's worth when they couldn't see it themselves. Evenings with Jack became our sacred time. We cooked dinner together. Real meals, not just whatever was easiest. He'd tell me about his day while I listened without the constant background worry about family expectations or financial stress. The raise that came with my new responsibilities had lifted a weight I'd carried for so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe freely. Mama, Jack said one evening while we were making homemade pizza, you seem different lately. Happier. Do I? I asked, though I knew he was right. Yeah. You laugh more. And you don't check your phone as much when you think I'm not looking. His observation was startlingly accurate. I had stopped seeking validation from social media, stopped refreshing my email obsessively, stopped waiting for other people to define my worth. A year after the wedding, I received an unexpected text from Aiden. I know this might be strange, but would you and Jack like to have dinner sometime? As friends. I miss our conversations. The dinner happened 2 weeks later at a family restaurant where Jack could order chicken fingers without judgment and Aiden could tell us about his latest bridge project. It felt natural, comfortable, like spending time with someone who genuinely enjoyed our company. You look different, Aiden observed while Jack was distracted by the arcade games near the entrance. Different how? Confident. Like you've settled into yourself. He was right. The woman who had walked into Bella's wedding searching for acceptance was gone. In her place stood someone who no longer needed external validation to feel worthy. As we said goodbye that night, Aiden hugged me. A real hug, warm and uncomplicated. Thank you, he said. For what? For showing me what authenticity looks like. That wedding was the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it ended everything I thought I wanted. Driving home with Jack asleep in the back seat, I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The humiliation at Bella's wedding had felt like an ending at the time, but it had actually been a beginning. Aiden's defense of me had given me permission to defend myself, to believe I was worth defending. The woman I'd become didn't need anyone's approval to exist, to take up space, to be exactly who she was. She was a mother who raised her child with love and intention. She was a professional who contributed meaningfully to her workplace. She was a person who deserved respect, kindness, and genuine connection. Most importantly, she was enough. Exactly as she was, without apology or explanation. That realization, more than any vindication or revenge, felt like true victory. If this story of courage and redemption touched your heart, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Aiden took the microphone and defended Emma with such powerful conviction. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more inspiring stories like this. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.